Okay, so I will now transition us to the next speaker, who is Mary Therese Hattori. She is a scholarship coordinator for the East-West Center and affiliate graduate faculty at the University of Hawaiʻi at Manoa. She'll be sharing with us Pacific Focus resources. Take it away, Mary.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for being here. One of the things I do in my spare time, outside of my regular duties that Shannon mentioned, is for the last 5 years, I've been working with different organizations, including the Honolulu Museum of Art School and the Center for Pacific Island Studies at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, to deliver DOE PDE3 courses called Carrying Culture of Micronesia. We will be transitioning that to the East-West Center Arts program, and I'll show you how to get information on that. So we're very excited about that as an upcoming opportunity. And we've been doing that for 5 years. When it was face-to-face, we had 4 classes a year on 3 different islands. And so we're transitioning to the online format and expanding to culturally sustaining practices in an online environment with a focus on Micronesian art and Micronesian cultures. So I'll show you how to get information on that later, since that's still in development. I'm Chamorro, originally from the island of Guam, and have lived in Hawaii since the 80s, and work with various Pacific Islander communities, primarily Micronesians. Prior to working here at the East-West Center, I worked for the Center for Pacific Island Studies, and so much of my work was around collecting resources and sort of keeping in touch with resources out there. So my presentation today will actually be about resources related to Oceania, and I'll show you a few of the handouts that Shannon will make available to you through Padlet. And so everything I'm going to share with you visually, you'll actually see in text. There's one handout with over a dozen websites linked to it and annotations about what those websites are. But today I'll take you through that. Before I do that, I want to say, as most of you know, Oceania is rather large. The Pacific Ocean itself makes up 28% of the Earth's surface area. It represents 46% of the water surface area. The area of the ocean itself is larger than all of the world's land masses. It's also the world's deepest ocean, and most of the active and dormant volcanoes are actually in the Pacific area, what most of you know of as the Ring of Fire. 75% of the world's active and dormant volcanoes are in that area. 90% of the world's earthquakes occur in this area. Epeli Ho'ofa put it very nicely when he said, Oceania is vast. Oceania is expanding. Oceania is humanity rising from the depths of brine and regions of fire deeper still. Oceania is us. We are the sea and we are the ocean. Dr. Jojo Peter and 2 professors from the University of Hawaii, Marie Eiding and Jim Skauge from the special ed program, wrote a paper called The Computer and the Canoe. In Chuukese, Jojo's native language, the word for canoe is wa. A canoe is a carrier of life. The body is wa. It also carries life. In this paper that they wrote, The Computer and the Canoe, the computer is wa. The computer is our canoe, and the internet is our ocean. With the pandemic, many of us are unable to return to our islands. And so the computer is even more important to us. And I think digital resources and those that I'm sharing with you today are critically important and growing in value. So I want to share I'll share the screen now, and you'll have access to my slideshow, but in the interest of saving time and going right to the resources, I'm not going to go through the slideshow, which is just visuals. I'm going to actually take you to the websites. All right, are you seeing the educators portal? Okay. So some of the websites and again, you'll have a list of all of these. Some of the websites are teacher made, so they're portals to material made for teachers by teachers. Guampedia is one that has been expanding quite a bit in recent years. They have an educators portal that's continually growing. They welcome new lesson plans. And what I like is that this is really, you know, K-12 focused, though we're starting to expand into higher education. And they have lesson plans. You can actually scroll through a lesson plan page. You can do a search based on subject area, based on age group, grade level subject, and then there are links to special projects. So the Guampedia educators portal, I think, is a really good resource for connecting teachers to Pacific related activities. But then also, in addition to that, the content is not necessarily Pacific related, but it's often very culturally, it's culturally responsive, culturally sustaining. So it's provided from a Pacific lens. So Guampedia, again, the educators portal, I think, is a really good place to start. Also from Guampedia, we go to, are you seeing the Micronesia portal? Okay, so this is one of their newest products, and it's interesting, you know, Hawaii is part of Polynesia and part of the Pacific is very special, very important, but many people in Hawaii don't know much about the rest of the Pacific. We here may understand and be more familiar with the rest of Polynesia and Polynesian culture and history, but our understanding of Micronesia is rather limited, and our understanding of Melanesia is even more limited. So I really like this portal. It's interactive, and this interactive map of Micronesia is very helpful, and they bring together all of the nations and the islands of Greater Micronesia here in an interactive format. And even more, I'm going to scroll down to find, so they have articles. This is a good resource for students and educators, and I'm trying to, sorry, scroll down quickly because I want to get to their, oh, here, they also have at the bottom here, cultures, they call it POP, the people of the Pacific, and so they focus on Micronesia here, but you can also get to the portal for other groups. Let me see if I can get to one of their other. Okay, so Guampedia has those areas, and the other exciting thing that they've done is the Micronesian Milestones. Oh, I don't see it here, sorry. It's an interactive map. Let me pull that up from my other. I really like this. So this is Guampedia's Micronesia and World Milestones, a journey through 4,000 years. And what I love about this is that it places our people's history in the context of world history. One of the things that many people aren't always aware of or appreciative of is the antiquity of Pacific Island societies. So you know, very quickly you can see that when people were settling my islands in the Marianas, it was around the same time the ancient Egyptians were building the Sphinx. Right? This is interactive, it's visual. Again, it helps people understand Pacific Islanders in the context of world events, not just American events. And again, it really helps you appreciate how ancient our societies are. So kids really, I think this is a really good resource for young students in particular because of the interactive nature of that. The other, moving on to another website, the National Tropical Botanical Garden has a website. Part of their work is the Breadfruit Institute, and I love this. This is a great spot for teachers. I see some of you nodding your heads. I love this because there are all of these resources around breadfruit. And during the pandemic, one of the biggest topics is sustainable agriculture. And here in Hawaii and in Oceania, we're looking at reviving our own indigenous plants, the foods of our people. In some of the food boxes that we've been giving out to communities with large populations of Micronesians, we're actually trying to be much more sensitive and put, breadfruit in it, help people understand how to make flour from it, and then cook with it. The other thing I really like is the breadfruit name map. And it is wonderful for students because it shows the connections, the linguistic connections, the similarities, and the importance of breadfruit across the islands, but also that, if you're looking at linguistics and trying to find connections across cultures, this is just, really obvious. It's easy for students to understand this. It makes the connections more accessible. And this is, free from the Breadfruit Institute. So lots of different things. They've got curriculum pages in English and in Hawaiian. So I also appreciate that. I think it's a great model to follow, and again, very accessible. And one thing that they always ask me to say is that they are not in the business of selling breadfruit plants. So they may distribute some when they're working on outreach and trying to encourage people to grow it, but they are not a nursery, and you can't go and buy breadfruit trees or breadfruit plants from them. A great curricula though. Place is very important. Place-based education is very important. The curriculum library for the ethnomathematics program at the College of Education is great. This is also teacher materials created by teachers for teachers. And so they've got a lot of lesson plans here, place-based, tied to Hawaii standards. So that's another good one. For research purposes, Scholar Space at the University of Hawaii at Manoa is a great resource. In particular for Oceania, there's a series called Teaching Oceania. These are interactive iBooks, and you can get them for both iBooks and then other readers that are not iOS, and then PDF versions. So they're interactive. They have embedded in them video, audio. So there's you can go into each of these and download them. So it's EPUB, iBook, and PDF. So militarism and nuclear testing is one. Gender in the Pacific, health and environment, oceanic arts, and then islands of French-speaking Polynesia. So each of those volumes was designed by faculty for intro-level students in Pacific Studies. So this is great for high school and college. And again, all interactive and pretty recent as well. If you're looking at current events, I like Inkstick, John Letman, who happens to be a journalist focusing on Oceania. And I also found out he works for not the Breadfruit Institute, but their overarching agency. And so Inkstick Media, it takes news, so this is more current events, and it dives deeper into it. They've got essays, articles, podcasts, and interviews. So this first page is the homepage. They're just highlighting a recent book about military contamination in the Pacific, places like Okinawa and Guam, the Marshall Islands. And so he's just focusing on that on the homepage, but you can get to other interviews, articles, essays, and podcasts. So really good for research purposes, sort of a more critical but contemporary look at that. And then the arts program at the East West Center has a school outreach page. And if you sign up for updates, you can subscribe to receive email updates. Then you'll get updates about all of their professional development events and then the PD3 that I mentioned earlier. So they've got lots of workshops, often connected to the exhibits. And they've expanded and have been doing a lot of things online. And again, you'll have a handout that shows all of that available through the Padlet. So I'm going to stop there. There's a lot more, but I just wanted to share some of those with you. There's some statistical resource sites as well and other teacher portals. Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Wow, we got so many great resources that you all shared today. I'm going to open it up for